Generation 4 is an iconic competitive generation in competitive singles history. Aside from the fact that it's a very fun metagame, this is actually where the suspect test process originated. Pokémon like Rayquaza and Kyogre are obvious Uber candidates without question. But this is the first generation that introduced Pokémon that may not look like an Uber candidate at first glance, but have proven to be in practice. Today we will be going over all the Pokémon that have been banned from the Gen 4 OU tier to the tier with the strongest Pokémon overpowered legendaries, of course the Gen 4 Ubers tier. Let's start off with Garchomp. As a pseudo legendary, Garchomp has incredible base stat total of 600. Garchomp has a great attack stat at 130 base and a great speed tier at 102 base. Garchomp's offensive typing with Crown Dragon is also super difficult to switch into, because in Generation 4 the only type that resists Dragon is Steel. And guess what? Ground can hit that for super effective damage. This typing was further boosted by the powerful stab moves Garchomp had, these being Dragon Claw, Outrage and Earthquake. Garchomp becomes even more threatening with Sword Stance, boosting its attack even further, allowing it to literally 2-hit KO anything in the metagame. The only Pokemon in the tier to withstand Garchomp's stamp combination were Skarmory and Bronzong, which got obliterated by both Fire Fang and Fire Blast. I'm not even done yet, because Garchomp also has the ability Sandfill, boosting its evasiveness by 25% when sand is up, and back then those abilities were not banned like they are right now. With Tyranitar being extremely common in Gen 4, this was very easy to take advantage of. Garchomp's 102 base speed is also important, as base 100 speed is very common in the tier, and this makes Garchomp very hard to revenge kill, as it can outspeed the majority of the tier, and examples include Flygon, Zapdos and Jirachi. The only Pokemon that could reliably revenge kill Garchomp are those that can outspeed it and hit it with a super effective ice move, like Mamoswine and Weavile. However, Garchomp would commonly use a Yachi Berry, which halves the damage of incoming ice attacks for one time. This left Choice Band Weavile as the only reliable revenge killer to Garchomp, as it could 1-hit KO it with Ice Punch, even through Yachi Berry. But even then you could get unlucky if Sandwheel was active. Garchomp pretty much had no counterplay, as even Pokemon that could tank its hits like Cresselia and Hippowdon couldn't do enough damage back. Despite Garchomp getting banned, it has proven to be a very powerful threat in the Ubers tier, so there's that. Deoxys Speed. Yes, you heard that correctly, Deoxys Speed was actually legal in the OU tier for some time. This Pokemon quickly became a defining offensive threat in the metagame while it lasted, as it packed a solid base 95 attacks and special attack stat, and the highest speed stat in the game with base 180. Allowing to outspeed the entire metagame and the majority of Choice Scarf users as well. Deoxys Speed pretty much invalidated offensive teams, as you couldn't really outspeed it or tank hits from it, since it packed great super effective coverage with Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball and Super Power. Not to mention it could increase its damage output with items like Life Orb and Expert Belt. Only a handful of niche Choice Scarf users like Infernape, Gengar and Azelf could revenge kill Deoxys, and priority moves too if it had taken prior damage. Friendly reminder that this Pokemon was allowed before Pokemon Platinum, so Bullet Punch Scissor did not exist. Because of this, outspeeding Deoxys speed often came down to a speed tie with your own Deoxys speed. Aside from an incredible offensive threat, Deoxys speed was also a superior lead. This is probably how you remember it from Gen 4 Ubers, where it defines the lead metagame. Due to its incredible speed, it was impossible to stop Deoxys speed from getting a Stealth Rock early game. Not to mention it could go for a taunt to shut down other leads. If that wasn't enough, it also had spikes and dual screens, allowing it to support its team even further. The only way to stop it was once again with your own taunt Deoxys speed. Another great Pokemon in the Ubers tier that was allowed in OU is Shaymin Sky. Shaymin Sky boasts a great special attack stat of 120 base and an incredible speed stat of base 127. Making the second fastest Pokemon in the tier behind Aerodactyl and Jolteon. Shaymin Sky also has two great stab moves with its signature move Seed Flare and Air Slash, not to mention its great coverage with Earth Power to hit steel types like Heatran that could take its stabs, and Hidden Power Fire to take care of exceptions like Skarmory, Bronzong and Scizor. Even Hidden Power Ice saw used to revenge kill Dragon Dance Salamence. Shaymin Sky also has the ability Serene Grace, which made it even more difficult to switch into. This doubled the chance of Air Slash flinching, making Scar sets a menace to deal with, and C3 now had a 80% chance to lower the target's special defense by 2 stages, making mauling this Pokemon very difficult. Substitute plus Leech Seed sets were super unfair too, as it could easily flinch you to death with Air Slash and the Leech Seed chip. The only Pokemon that are immune to Leech Seed are Grass types, which get obliterated by Air Slash. Its base 100 HP stat also meant it could set up substitutes against Blissey and not get it broken by Seismic Toss. Since countering Shamy Sky was not really an option, Ice Shard users like Mamoswine and Weavile were pretty much the only reliable Pokemon that could stop it in its tracks. Latios is an interesting exception to this video, as this Pokemon is currently in the overused tier. However, this was not always the case. Latios was banned to Ubers, but was retested with the release of Pokemon Platinum and has remained in the tier ever since, because it's not allowed to use the Soul 2 item, which was very powerful back in Gen 3 and Gen 4. Since Latios was immediately banned to Ubers and was not tested, there is technically no reason for its ban. It was just predicted to be too much for the metagame with Soul Dew, hence why it's now fine in the tier without it. Despite it not being banned, I think it will still be fun to go over why it was unbanned. Latios was actually not that hard to deal with defensively. Tyranitar shaped the tier with its presence and got buffed in Generation 4 as it gained a special defense boost from Sandstorm, and Pursuit was now a physical attack. This is a big deal because in Generation 3 it could not take hits as well without the boost, and Pursuit barely dealt any damage as it was a special move, so Latios did not have to worry about Tyranitar switching in as much. Latios also has a tough time against steel types like Jirachi, Metagross and Napoleon. Special walls like Blazing Clefable can also tank hits and threaten it with a status move. And even if Latios does force a KO, there's always the threat of Tyranitar being able to revenge KO it, assuming it's healthy enough. Latios does have some tools around its checks like Trick and Thunder Wave, but it's still very susceptible to many of the top threats in the tier, resulting in it getting unbanned from the Ubers tier to the OU tier. Now Latios is a solid option in the OU tier, being probably one of the strongest Pokemon there. It's the only Dragon Psychic type in the tier, so you have an answer to fighting, fire, water, grass, electric and psychic types in one Pokemon, allowing you to resist Pokemon like Infernape and Breloom, which very few Pokemon can do. Not to mention that it's immune to spikes and toxic spikes with Levitate, and it's not weak to Stealth Rock, and it also has Roost to keep itself healthy. Salamence was actually a fine Pokemon in the tier until the release of Pokemon Platinum, where it gained access to Outrage. Salamence is already a strong Pokemon with its base 135 attack stat, 110 special attack stat and base 100 speed, but Outrage just pushed it over the edge. Combine this with Dragon Dance boosting its attack and speed even further, and it was nearly unstoppable after one turn of setting up. Then you have Earthquake to hit Steel types and Fire Blast to hit Skarmory and Scizor, and that hits hard coming off that special attack stat. Salamence could mix and match with its moveset, as it could also run Draco Meteor to take care of any physical wall that could take Outrage, and it also had Roost to keep itself healthy. So taking this Pokemon down was no easy feat either. Salamence could do whatever it pretty much felt like. You had Dragon Dance sets, mix sets, Choice Band or Choice Scarf, and a physically or specially defensive set, and every set requires a different counter. For example, Scizor and Jirachi could beat Choice sets but would lose to Dragon Dance. The same goes for Heatran and Metagross, which could beat mix sets but lose to Dragon Dance, and Bronzong could beat a Dragon Dance set but not a mix set. You basically needed at least 2 different Pokemon to be prepared for the different sets. Sure, there were reliable revenge killers like Ice Shard Weavile and Mamoswine, but good luck switching those in without them dying. Needless to say, Salamence was a menace and got banned, and ever since its ban, it has basically been Rayquaza at home in the Ubers tier. Lastly, I also want to mention Manaphy. Manaphy is an Ubers Pokemon, not quite good in the Ubers tier, and it was tested in the overused tier. However, this was on a different ladder, so it technically was never allowed in the OU tier, but it was tested. So technically it was never banned from OU to Ubers, but it has been tested, so I just quickly wanted to mention that Pokemon as well. These are all the Pokemon that were allowed in the Gen 4 OU tier, but were banned either relatively quickly or after some time. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see a follow-up with the bans of Gen 5 OU, let me know by leaving a like and a comment. There are some Uber Pokemon you might not even know were actually OU at one time, even if it was for a small time. Let me know what band stands out to you the most, and check out the videos on the screen. Thank you for watching and see you next time.